My name is Patsy. I'm sitting in the now empty office of what used to be my family's event business, Evergreen Events. The silence is deafening, and the air is thick with the weight of what's happened. Outside, my family is in a state of shock as they confront the financial ruin that has befallen them. It's a far cry from the days when they paraded around, boasting about their so-called empire. It all started when I was on the verge of a new beginning. I worked as a risk analyst for a large tech firm in San Diego. My job was to spot potential problems before they became disasters, but I was blind to the issues within my own family. One fateful Friday, I stood at the airline counter, my suitcase beside me, ready to fly to Austin for the final interview for a senior management position. I'd already postponed 2 career-advancing opportunities because my family's event business always seemed to be in crisis. The airline agent checked my confirmation number, frowned, and asked if I'd canceled the reservation. No, I replied, bewildered. Why would I? She explained that the purchaser had requested a refund the day before. Just then, my phone vibrated. Messages popped up in the family group chat. Have a nice walk home, loser, one said. Another followed. Maybe now you'll stop chasing pipe dreams and focus on what really matters, the family business. My parents, Harold and Martha, had bought the ticket through a shared account and then canceled it to stop me from going to the interview. They thought I'd be crushed, embarrassed, and too scared to pursue a life outside their control. But instead, I let out a laugh. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was the moment I realized that this ticket was just the tip of the iceberg of what they'd taken from me over the years, and it would be the last straw. I simply typed, okay. I rented a car and drove back to my apartment. There, I opened a folder I'd been avoiding for ages. Inside were loan statements, insurance notices, and overdue invoices, all with my signature on them. My parents ran Evergreen Events, a beautiful event venue on 15 acres outside of San Diego. Online, it looked like a thriving business, with pictures of elegant weddings, corporate events, and happy clients. But those pictures didn't show the financial mess beneath the surface. 3 years ago, a major flood damaged the venue. Many events were canceled, but my father, Harold, kept making big purchases without considering the cash flow. My mother, Martha, was obsessed with making the place look top-notch, believing that appearance would bring in more business. When the bank refused to give them another loan, I stepped in. I'd just received a big bonus from my job, and I used most of it to keep their insurance up to date. I also became a personal guarantor for a working capital loan because my parents promised they just needed 6 good months to turn things around. Well, 6 months turned into 3 years. My younger sister, Lily, was in charge of the social media pages and called herself the creative director. But I paid for every single advertisement she approved. My older brother, Jake, called himself the operations manager, but he was always late, ignored maintenance schedules, and used the company vans for his personal errands. My parents saw Evergreen Events as their legacy, but in reality, I was the one holding it together. Whenever I questioned an expense, my father called me negative. When I asked to review the books, my mother accused me of not trusting the family. At family dinners, they'd mock me as the corporate robot. And when I refused to fund unnecessary upgrades, they said I lacked vision. When I mentioned the Austin position, my father asked if I was going to abandon the family as soon as I got a bigger paycheck. The week before my flight, they announced a 10-day family vacation in the Bahamas and called it a strategic retreat, even though Evergreen Events was footing part of the bill. I refused to cover the cost, but they went anyway. My mother used reward points from an old shared account to buy my Austin ticket. I should have seen the trap when she suddenly became overly supportive of my interview. They waited until they were already in the Bahamas to cancel it. That airport message wasn't a joke, it was a punishment to make me afraid of leaving. But this time, their cruelty made me look at the numbers. I called my old friend, Ryan, who worked in forensic accounting. He'd warned me before that my family's finances were a ticking time bomb. When he answered, I said, "I'm ready to show you everything." He paused. Everything? The loans, the vendor accounts, the booking records, all of it, I replied. His voice turned serious. Don't transfer any money, sign anything, or warn them. Just send me copies of every document with your name on it. That night, Ryan came over with his laptop, a scanner, and some legal pads. We worked until the early hours of the morning. The situation was far worse than I'd imagined. My parents had been using deposits from future events to pay for current operating expenses. They'd delayed paying taxes, renewed leases with false income projections, and submitted a vendor credit application with my electronic signature. Ryan pointed to the screen and asked if I'd authorized it. No, I said. Did you give anyone permission to sign for you? No, I replied. He then said that someone might have forged my approval. My anger turned cold. For years, I'd thought my family was just careless because they trusted me to save them. Now, I realized they'd been using me as a legal shield. Ryan asked what I wanted to do. I thought about the canceled flight, the lost interview, the postponed promotions, and all the years I'd spent paying their bills while they went on vacations. I want my name removed from everything that isn't mine, I said. He warned me that it could collapse the business. I know, I replied. And when he said that once we started, it might be hard to fix things quietly later, I closed the folder and said, good. By Saturday, Ryan had created a timeline of all the payments I'd made to Evergreen Events in the past 36 months. The total was more than I'd paid in rent during that time. Each payment was tied to a moment of manipulation. The flood repair I covered when my father said employees would lose their jobs, the tax bill my mother described as an emergency while buying new furniture for the office, and Lily's new car down payment, even though she later posted about how she'd made it on her own. Jake's motorcycle insurance was listed as a business expense, and my parents' luxury cruise was marked as client development. Their Bahamas vacation was partly charged to marketing. Ryan recommended getting legal counsel right away, sending notices to the bank and vendors disputing the unauthorized signatures, and separating my assets from those of Evergreen Events. I hired an attorney, Grace. She reviewed the forged application and asked if my parents knew I'd found out. When I said no, she told me to keep it that way until the notices were sent. Grace prepared letters disputing the signature and withdrawing my personal guarantees whenever possible. For the loan that couldn't be changed immediately, she notified the bank of suspected misrepresentation and asked for a formal review. We arranged for a company to retrieve the equipment I'd bought with my own money when Evergreen Events couldn't get financing. I'd purchased 8 commercial air conditioners, a large-scale projector, sound systems, office desks, and a high-end server. The invoices were all in my name, and I also owned the license for the event management software. On Sunday, my family posted pictures from the Bahamas. My parents were sipping cocktails by the pool, Lily was holding an Evergreen Events sign, and Jake was posing with a big smile. The caption read, Family Strategy Week. Great things ahead. Jake commented, building an empire. While they were celebrating, Grace sent the first notices. The bank called on Monday afternoon. The loan officer asked if I was sure I hadn't approved the vendor application. I provided evidence that I'd been at work when the authorization was submitted, and the login had come from Evergreen Events office. The bank immediately froze the credit line. This single action changed everything. Evergreen Events used that credit line to pay employees and vendors between event deposits. Without it, the company had almost no operating cash. Lily texted, "Did you do something to the business account?" Jake wrote, "The fuel card isn't working. Call me." My mother left a message from the Bahamas, "There's a problem with the bank. Fix it before we get back. We don't need any drama." She didn't even ask if I was okay or why I'd missed the interview. The next day, the retrieval company took away my air conditioners, projector, sound systems, and server. Jake called me 20 times, and Lily posted a vague complaint about jealous people trying to ruin the family business. My father finally texted, "What are you up to?" I replied, "I'm separating my property and finances from Evergreen Events. Talk to my attorney." He said, "You don't have an attorney." I sent him Grace's information. After a long pause, he wrote, "You're making a huge mistake." I looked around my apartment. For the first time in years, every bill on my desk was mine and mine alone. "No," I answered, "I'm fixing one." By Wednesday, Evergreen Events problems were out in the open. The florist for an upcoming wedding hadn't been paid. The catering company found out their deposit had been used elsewhere. The transportation service threatened to cancel the account because the insurance linked to my card had expired. My family's first reaction wasn't to take responsibility, it was to blame me. Lily left a long voicemail accusing me of sabotage. "This business supports all of us," she said. "You can't just think about your own feelings. Mom has worked so hard to build this brand. Dad has invested everything. I have important partnerships. Don't you see how selfish you're being?" She'd never once looked at a bank statement or understood the size of the debt. Her so-called partnerships were just discounts from local shops in exchange for social media posts. When I didn't reply, she demanded access to the advertising account. Grace told her that Evergreen Events could create its own. Jake took a more aggressive approach. He drove to my apartment and pounded on the door until a neighbor threatened to call the police. I spoke through the intercom. "Open the door," he demanded. "No," I said. "You took the equipment," he said. "It belongs to me," I replied. "You shut down the credit line," he accused. "I reported a forged signature," I countered. He went silent. That silence told me he knew more than he was letting on. "Who submitted the application?" I asked. "It was business paperwork," he mumbled. "Did you use my electronic signature?" I pressed. He didn't answer. Until that moment, part of me had hoped it was just a mistake. But his silence killed that hope. "You need to leave," I said. "Dad said you agreed," he replied. "Then why didn't anyone ask me?" I shot back. "Because you always make things difficult," he said. "No," I retorted. "I just ask where the money goes." He accused me of ruining the family over a stupid prank. I told him they'd canceled my interview because they were afraid I'd leave. "We needed you here," he said. "You needed my credit here," I replied. When I refused to argue further, he hit the door with his fist and warned me I'd regret embarrassing them. I looked at the airport message still saved on my phone. "They taught me that humiliation is okay when it's from family," I said. "I'm just not hiding the truth anymore." The next morning, Evergreen Events' biggest client, Mrs. Thompson, called. Her daughter's wedding was scheduled for September, and they'd already paid $50,000. "Your mother said you handle the finances," she explained. "The caterer says he hasn't received his deposit. Is our wedding still on?" For years, I would have lied to protect my family. But this time, I answered carefully. I'm no longer involved in Evergreen Events operations. My attorney is keeping the booking records, but I can't guarantee the venue's financial situation. You should ask for written proof of all vendor payments. Mrs. Thompson asked if she should be worried. "You should protect yourself," I replied. Within 2 days, several clients demanded proof that their deposits were safe. Evergreen Events couldn't provide it. My mother sent an angry message, "You're scaring the brides. You're making us look bad." I answered, "I didn't create the mess." She claimed I was punishing innocent people because I was mad about the flight. But the flight was just the proof that they were afraid of my independence. I stopped responding and forwarded all messages to Grace. My family returned from the Bahamas on Friday evening. They'd been posting pictures of themselves on the beach while vendors, employees, and clients were trying to figure out if Evergreen Events could survive. Lily uploaded one last picture with the caption, "Back to business." When they arrived at the venue, the equipment yard was half empty. There was a formal notice from Grace in the office. The computers were gone, the event monitors had been removed, and in the main conference room were Mrs. Thompson, 2 other clients, 3 vendors, the bank's loan officer, Ryan, Grace, and me. My father stopped in the doorway. My mother dropped her suitcase. Jake stared at me with rage. Lily whispered, "What did you do?" I folded my hands on the table. "Exactly what you told me to do. I stayed home," I said. For a few seconds, no one moved. My father was the first to recover and ordered everyone except family to leave. The loan officer opened a folder and explained that the meeting was required under the commercial loan agreement. Grace added that the clients and vendors were there because their money and contracts were at stake. My mother turned to me. "You arranged this?" I said, "I just made sure everyone knew the truth at the same time." Mrs. Thompson held a binder with all the payment receipts for her daughter's wedding. The florist had printed out unpaid invoices. The caterer had messages where my mother had repeatedly said the payment was on the way. Lily stepped forward and said it was just a temporary banking issue caused by my sudden withdrawal. Ryan showed a financial summary that proved Evergreen Events had been insolvent on a cash flow basis for at least 16 months. New deposits had been used to pay for old events, and many personal expenses had been hidden as business costs. My father demanded to know who Ryan was and how he had access to the records. Ryan explained that I'd legally obtained the records as a guarantor, account holder, purchaser, and the victim of a forged signature. The loan officer asked my father if he'd submitted my approval for the credit application. My father said he thought I'd agreed. "Did she sign it?" the officer asked. My father repeated that we'd talked about financing many times. My mother interrupted and said families don't need to ask for formal permission every time. Grace replied, "Banks do." The florist asked when she'd get paid. The caterer wanted proof that client deposits were still safe. There was no escrow account. My parents had spent the money as soon as it came in. Mrs. Thompson asked if her $50,000 had paid for someone else's event. My mother used her client-friendly voice and promised everything would be okay. But Mrs. Thompson pointed to the missing equipment, the unpaid caterer, and the expired transportation insurance. Lily insisted the insurance could be fixed. The loan officer asked, "With what money?" That question changed the atmosphere in the room. Until then, my family thought it was just an emotional outburst from me. They believed they could guilt-trip me into fixing things. But the loan officer made it clear that it was a mathematical problem. Evergreen Events had less than $7,000 in the bank. Payroll was due on Monday. Overdue vendor bills were more than $80,000. The potential refund amount was huge. The credit line was frozen, my guarantee was in question, and a lot of the equipment belonged to me. There was no way out. My father looked at me. "You planned this while we were away," he said. "While you were away?" I replied. "You knew we couldn't run the business without those accounts," he accused. "Yes," I said. "And you did it anyway," he said. "Yes," I answered. My mother started to cry and accused me of destroying the family legacy. In the past, those tears would have made me cave in and save them. But this time, they didn't change the facts on the screen. "I didn't spend the deposits," I said. "I didn't forge my signature. I didn't go on a luxury vacation with business money. I just stopped covering up your mistakes." Lily accused me of enjoying their humiliation. I told her that innocent clients might lose their weddings, employees might lose their jobs, and vendors might lose their money. None of that made me happy. "Then fix it," she demanded. "No," I said. She reminded me that I had savings and could cover the shortfall. I admitted I could, but I said I wouldn't. Jake accused me of caring more about paperwork than people. "Paperwork is how you used my name without my permission," I replied. My father slammed his hand on the table and said I was still his daughter. Was I your daughter when you cancelled my flight? I asked. He argued that the trip might have taken me away from the business. I revealed that the Austin company had already discussed salary, relocation support, and a start date with me. My mother stared at me. You were going to leave San Diego without telling us? I'm an adult, I said. You depend on me too much, I added. My father claimed they'd only cancelled one ticket, while I'd destroyed an entire company. You cancelled it because you were afraid I'd stop propping up the business, I said. That means you knew Evergreen Events couldn't survive without me. You just thought I'd never choose myself. Mrs. Thompson asked if the wedding could still happen. Ryan explained that the property still had value, and the events might be transferred to another operator, but my parents couldn't pretend nothing had happened. The bank proposed appointing a turnaround manager. My father refused, saying no outsider would run his business. The loan officer warned that the bank could take